to the Real Will Show, where we sit down and talk about all things women's basketball. Right now, we're in the thick of women's college basketball season, so we want to do a few rundowns of some of the things that are trending as far as topics, and kind of give a brief overview of where the game is right now, where the game may be going, and kind of the future of women's basketball. We're also going to get into the draft lottery. I'm going to talk some LSU Tigers, so let's jump right into it. So our first topic of the day is our favorite team, the LSU Tigers. Looks like they're having a little bit more controversy, or the roller coaster continues, so to speak. Just recently, we got a report officially from multiple media outlets that Kateri Poole, a player for LSU last year, who was a pivotal player, a guard for them, is officially gone from the program. Now, there was a lot of speculation when the Angel Reese suspension occurred, that there was some connection between her and Kateri Poole, considering the timing of it. But at that time, if you remember, Kateri Poole for a couple of games actually sat the bench with the team. She didn't look happy about it, but she was there on the team, on the bench, supporting her team, cheering them on. But I guess things just kind of got to a point where the split seemed kind of amicable, at least at this point, where there's no dirt coming out or there's no shots being fired. Kateri Poole made a nice post on her Instagram page talking about how thank you LSU fans, Tiger fans, holding up the national championship trophy. So I thought that may have given a little temporary closure to people who may be looking for Kateri Poole to kind of spill the beans, so to speak, on what might be happening. I don't see it occurring. For one, Kim Mulkey is one of the most respected and revered coaches in women's college basketball. So any shots or any damage or attempted damage to her reputation or to her program is not going to bode well for Kateri at this point, because she has not secured a new home. So I would suspect if anything were to come out about Kateri and how things transpired and what led to this decision, I would think that it would probably come down to her selecting the school and probably playing that season out, and before she even comes out and says anything, if there's anything to be said. Because it's been a situation where, LSU's loaded, man. They're loaded. They're pretty talented at the guard position. Haley Van Lith right now is dealing with a little plantar fasciitis, but that's expected to be temporary. She should be back within a few games. Then they have this amazing freshman, Michaela Williams, who I think is neck and neck with Judea Watkins as the best freshman in the country, and she's going to vie for that best player in the country title at some point in her career. And then you have Flau'jae Johnson, who's really, really come on strong this year. She played well last year as a freshman, really impressed me with all the hype surrounding her and with her music career as well. Honestly, I didn't expect to see as focused as a freshman as I saw coming in. She really could have tried to do too much, try to feed into the hype that was surrounding her coming in, but she didn't. She came in, she played a role, good solid defense. She shot the ball well enough to keep defenses honest. She slashed, she rebounded well from the guard position. So coming into this year, I actually have very high expectations for Flau'jae, and through all of this, she's been one of their more consistent players. So I think that might have had more to do than anything with Kateri. Obviously not getting minutes early in the season, and ultimately probably led her to be a little bit disgruntled, considering the fact that, she did help LSU win a national title last year and was an integral part. I will say this, sometimes, fair is not fair, so to speak. That was last year's team. They were looking to improve, as was every team, and they did just that. And so some of the weakness that they had last year was in the backcourt. Their most inconsistent play came from the backcourt last year. Alexis Morris, as great of a player as she was for them, she was inconsistent as far as her field goal percentage. She was a very dynamic player, very important piece for them, and a leader for them, really was a leader for them. And you can kind of see her leadership missing this season early on. But the consistency in her shooting and her play was not there. Kentiri Poole only averaged 4.5 points a game last year. Last year, Poa is up and down with her performance. Not a lot of production as well. So they really needed to improve in the backcourt, and they did that. Really, Flage was, outside of Alexis Morris, their best wing guard player last year. So they went out, they improved. They got Haley Van Lith, who, say what you want about her, she's a solid fit at that point guard position. Every player is not going to be everything. What you need is a player to be competent at the position and maybe give you a little bit more beyond that. And with the plethora of talent LSU has, they're not dependent on any one player. A. B, they like to play inside out. And typically teams that like to play inside out traditionally, you don't necessarily need a dynamic point guard. You need someone who can bring the ball up the floor, who can handle pressure, who can initiate the offense, and when their teams collapse in the paint, can knock down shots for you, which Haley can do. I think she's a little bit too much in her own head, thinking about what she should be doing or could be doing as a point guard. I think she's doing just fine, to be quite honest with you. Then we have to talk about the freshman, Michaela Williams, who is special. I mean, special as a scorer in a way I haven't seen since Carmelo Anthony coming out of Oak Hill. That type of special. Everybody's talking about Judea, and it's so funny because you got Judea, Michaela comparisons. It really reminds me of LeBron. Now, in fairness to Judea, she is not quite the athlete that LeBron is, but I understand why, that Carmelo LeBron comparison could be apt to this from this standpoint. Judea is a polished, ready to go pro. Like, she's ready right now. Now, her game is not necessarily flashy, even though she does some very nice things, but she's very meat and potatoes. She's going to get to her spot. She's going to get downhill, going right. If you cut her off, she's going to shoot the pull-up. She's very adept as a passer, 6'2" body, strong, not wiry. She's 6'2" and strong, thick. So physically, she has that advantage on the perimeter. Michaela, however, physically has some of the same things. But her natural scoring skill and ability, I believe, usurps even Judea's. As fundamentally sound and as sharp as Judea is as an offensive player, and she is sharp, Michaela has a little something that at the end of the shot clock, not every player has. And when you look at LeBron and you look at Carmelo, to me that was really a separator, that in key moments where you needed to get a basket, I would have rather had Carmelo than LeBron. And I think most people would tell you that. And so that's kind of how I look at Michaela Williams. Is her handle is flashy, but not unnecessarily flashy. And what I mean by that is she can make all the moves, right-handed, left-handed, off the dribble. But her footwork, her change of pace, her timing is impeccable. There was a play when they were playing against Louisiana Lafayette just recently, and she got the ball in transition just above half court, went at about 70% speed, and the defender had her back semi-turned to Michaela Williams. She immediately realized this, changed directions, and burst at 100% speed up the defender's back before the defender could turn around. Now, she got downhill, got to the rim, missed the layup, but they had a follow-up. I think Flage Johnson followed that miss up for her, but it was just very, very unique to see a player as young as her understand just change of pace and tempo in that way. And even when you watch her scoring, she's not getting the same number of shots as Juju. She's very efficient in the shots that she's shooting. Even when you look at some of the games, it's almost like she doesn't want to shoot too much. You can tell there's been some conversation in that LSU locker room about the emergence of Michaela Williams. You can tell. Either Coach Mulkey is going to Michaela Williams directly and speaking to her about it, or maybe it's something that they had as a team, because since that 42-point outburst by Michaela, you've really seen a concerted effort by her to really feed the post. Now, it's not that she wasn't before, But I see situations where she'll catch the ball on the wing and she's really not even looking to be aggressive at all. She's simply looking to get the ball in the post, and I guess that's not a bad thing, because she's going to get her shots. And so you really like that maturity of a player of her caliber. She could easily shoot the ball 20 times a game, and she's so efficient. What are you going to say to a player that's giving you 22 points on 17 shots a game, 16 shots a game, and she's shooting over 50%? I mean, you can't really say anything to her. So I love her game. I love her footwork, her body control. She can make every shot. So I'm in love with Michaela Williams. As much as I like Judea Watkins, Michaela Williams really is the player that I want to keep my eye on, because she has the potential to really, really dominate at the next level. While Juju's going to be really good at the next level, Michaela has the ability to be a difference maker in kind of in the way that Cappie Pondexter was when she came out of Rutgers, but she's much bigger. If you remember Cappie at Rutgers, she was a problem. She was a problem to the point that her and Gino kind of didn't really see eye to eye, because they had some battles in the Big East, man. Those were good times back then with C. Vivian Stringer and her teams with Rutgers. But Cappie had a different type of bag. When she came into the league, she can get her shot off anytime. She could shoot from distance, and she was efficient as a shooter. And Michaela reminds me a lot of Cappie, but she's just much bigger. So that's going to be fun to watch her develop. It's unfortunate that, Kenteri couldn't find a role with this team this year, but I don't see it as a bad thing with her leaving. She wants to play. She's a competitor. She wants to play, and the writing is on the wall. She knows she's not going to be a part of this team when it comes to minutes on the floor. She sees that, and I think that probably was just two grown-ups coming into a room together and saying, hey, what's the best thing for us moving forward? Because I'm not happy with the way things are right now. And that's okay. Doesn't mean that either side is at fault. It's just the nature of what it is. In competitive sports, teams are always trying to get better. Unfortunately, Kenteri is a solid college player. She's not as dynamic as a Flau'jae Johnson or Michaela Williams or not even a Haley Van Lith. So I didn't have a problem with Coach Reese benching her. I think as a whole, the LSU program, it's going to be interesting to watch them this year, because talent-wise, they should make the Final Four. That shouldn't be an issue. They still have more than enough talent, even with Kateri Poole gone, even with Samaya Smith going down for the season with her knee injury. They still have the talent. But the question is going to be, are they going to end up like the Golden State Warriors of last year, where it's just too much stuff in the locker room at the end of the season when it's winning time, when you need everybody on one accord, has too much transpired. Right now, it's kind of hard to see. They really haven't had any serious battles. They had a pretty close game against UVA a couple of weeks ago, but nothing too tough. Colorado game to me was a little bit anomalous, because they just, Angel Reese just didn't look like she didn't realize the season had started. If I'm being completely honest, she just was not there. And her energy is, for whatever you could say about Angel Reese, her motor is real. I've been in the DMV area for almost 10 years now, and I've watched Angel since 8th grade. And that motor, her aggressiveness, her hunger around the basket for offensive and defensive rebounds, that's real. That she's always had that. And so that energy level is not going to go away. And with her size, that just creates problems for other teams. You don't really realize the impact Angel has on you till it's late in the quarter and LSU's already in a penalty. Like getting extra shots. She's just very valuable from that standpoint. But I think, the celebrity did kind of get to her, and she did forget what the main thing was, which was your production on the court was what put you in this position. And I think a little humility might have been lacking, which, we're human, man. She's young. I'll be honest with you. If I got $1 million today off doing this show, you might see a different side of me. You better believe that. My boss is certainly going to see a different side of me. Okay? So I can't be mad at Angel for just growing. I just hope that, going forward, she takes this as a life lesson that, the gifts of God are without repentance. However, humility is required to sustain those gifts. And like Flau'jae's mother said, and You could say it was tasteful or distasteful, whatever the case may be. God gave it to you. It could be taken away just quickly. So I like how she came back. I like that she was quiet throughout. She didn't. She let the media do all the talking. She didn't want to stir up the pot. I like how when she came back, she was all about the team. And to me, people can say what they want. To me, that shows maturity. That shows maturity. Now, either she's a really great actor, or she really did take this time to really try to get her mind right and say, hey, you know what? As big as I was for LSU this year, they're just as big as a part of my success as I was a part of theirs, and we did this together. And yes, I may be getting the lion's share of the credit, but I didn't do the lion's share of the work, and that can't be understated. So we'll see how this LSU season goes. I don't think that Angel was going to leave after this year. That kind of would make sense because she has 2 years of eligibility. She still has a COVID year and then she has a grad year. So we'll see how that works out. But I would anticipate she will return to LSU unless there was an agreement after this recent incident that, hey, we're going to finish out the season. We're going to be professional about it. And then we'll see what happens at the end of the year. But from Angel's standpoint, she's in a prime position. Finish out this journey with LSU, unless it's just not tenable as far as relationships are concerned on a personal level. From a basketball standpoint, I mean, this team is going to be rolling again next year. They're going to be in a conversation. Samaya Smith will be back. Michaela Williams will be back. Angel has another year. Anissa has another year if she so chooses. I believe Haley has. They all have another COVID year. So, and even if she's not able to retain those players, they're going to be active in recruiting and probably have a top 5 class coming in. You got some really good players coming in next year. So we'll see what happens as far as LSU down the stretch. Again, I still have them as a Final Four team. But with that being said, let's talk about, the top 25 and what teams we think are going to do what. Starting out, we have, go ahead and share that ESPN Top 25 screen with you. Give me 1 second. All right, you guys, not sure if it's showing on your end or not. Okay, there we go. So at the top, we have South Carolina. Obviously, they're doing their thing. At number 1, they had a tough one last night against Utah, which, if you watch the game, man, this girl, Alyssa Peely, which, she came on last year as far as a name nationally that people really got a chance to see with Utah's emergence last season. You really saw how good she was. They almost beat LSU last year. So it wasn't a surprise that they gave South Carolina a run for their money. But when you talk about learning the game of basketball and why it's important to master the fundamentals, no player exemplified that last night between South Carolina and Utah better than Alyssa Peely. At 6'2", somewhere in that range. Doesn't jump out the gym. Not a super athlete, not a blazer or a burner. Undersized at her position. She completely dominated and owned that game last night. And if she doesn't pick up her 3rd foul on what I thought was a crap offensive foul on a handoff action where pretty much the defender kind of exaggerated the contact, Peely didn't extend her hips or in any way. She simply pivoted out. Is an excellent basketball play because had they not called the foul, that was going to be a layup for Utah. But had she not been in foul trouble, that might have been a different outcome because it took everything South Carolina had, including a brilliant 3-point play down the stretch from Bree Hall to pull that out. And I know the final score, I think, was a 9-point difference. That was not the game. Alyssa Peely gave South Carolina everything that they could handle and more. And she dominated every player that guarded her. Ashlyn Watkins, Camila Cardoza, Sanaya Fagan, everybody they threw at her, she dominated. And really what you see with her, is the use of her body. It's not just that she has thickness and good lower body strength. It's her footwork and how she uses it. She knows how to get players on her hip quickly, and then she operates from there. Once you're on her hip, she's operating. She's not waiting around for the double team. She's not waiting around for you to adjust. She's getting right into her action. Secondly, she's an amazing outside shooter, and she knows how to use her shot fake to not necessarily get defenders off the floor, but just to get them out of their stance. And then thirdly, her footwork in the low post, finishing through contact, using her body to create separation. I mean, it was really a master class on just sound, fundamental basketball. And I'm hoping as a fan and as a coach myself, someone who teaches the game, that we'll start to see a return to more of that, where a lot of this highlight AAU culture has really hurt the product on the floor. And last night what you saw was what you can accomplish and what you can become and how you can maximize your own potential when you really lock in and focus on the fundamentals. So shout out to Alyssa Peely and that Utah squad. I expect them to make a run to the Elite 8 this year, at least the Sweet 16. South Carolina, though, man, they're big. I mean, it's just, at the end of the day, man, you got to play near perfect to beat them, man, because they're so big on the front line. You're just not going to score easily around the basket. Like Alyssa Peely last night probably played as well against the South Carolina front line as any player I've seen play in the last 2 years not named Aaliyah Edwards. A couple of years ago when they played South Carolina in the Bahamas, Aaliyah Edwards had a masterful game. It was kind of like a coming out party for her at the beginning of her junior year, where we were waiting on Aaliyah Edwards for her first 2 years to hit a level that she really hit, and it kind of was exemplified in that game. And she's pretty much carried it on to this point. But outside of that, man, you don't really see a lot of frontline players do well against South Carolina's front line. And they're just so big, and they're tenacious, and they're relentless. And you're getting blocked shots from Bree Hall. You're getting blocked shots from Camila Cardoza, obviously, and Ashlyn Watkins. You're even getting Malaysia Fulwale in on the party. Like, they're just very tenacious, attacking the ball, attacking shots, attacking rebounds. And so they just are difficult to stop. I think that we're seeing a little bit of the point guard back and forth, where I don't think the players have anything to do with it. I just think just by the very nature of Malaysia being so dynamic as a player and Don Staley being a very traditional old school coach, I think she's struggling right now with, do I go with my veteran redshirt sophomore but really a junior point guard who's been here for 3 years, knows my system, defensively is sound, is not going to make many mistakes on offense, or am I going to go with my quote unquote generational talent who every time she steps on the floor makes South Carolina more dynamic offensively? She speeds up their tempo. She gives effort on defense. I'm not really concerned that she's not there as far as her IQ yet. She's a freshman. Give her time. But what she gives South Carolina, I like better than what Raven Johnson gives South Carolina. And it's no shade to Raven Johnson. She's a solid college player, but I never really have understood the hype since high school. You know, when she was with Westlake and FBC United, I never saw it. I thought Tanaya Latson was by far the most dynamic player on that Westlake team that she played on in high school. I even like Brianna Turnage more than I like Raven Johnson, who was down in Florida State with Tanaya Latson. So I never got the Raven Johnson hype. I think it's just a situation where it's time to make that move. And I think Don Staley is reluctant to do that. But this is a situation that I think you can go ahead and make that move sooner rather than later, because what you don't want is to make that move in the middle of conference play after a tough loss, and now you're trying to figure it out down the stretch. Go ahead and get her in there now. Get those growing pains out the way that are going to for sure be there. She's still a little loose with the ball at times. She still gets a little too excited at times, but I don't care. She'll figure that out over time. Nobody comes into college. Rarely do people come into college completely ready to go on both ends of the floor. I want the most talented players on the floor, period. And it's not like Pow Pow was the best defender either. So with South Carolina's length on that perimeter, with Bree Hall at 5'11", but she looks 6'2" and very athletic. She's a long 5'11". You have Chloe Kitts at 6'4". You have Camila Cardoza at 6'7". You have Ashlyn Watkins at 6'5". You have Sanaya Fagan at 6'2". Like, even if you get by the guards, you got a lot to deal with. You got Bree Hall digging in. If she doesn't get the strip, you got to get past either Camilla or Chloe, and that's a tough shot to make. Okay, so I think offensively, South Carolina defensively is going to be what they are, regardless of who's in the backcourt. But offensively, Malaysia absolutely makes them more dynamic, and I think as they play the more offensively dynamic teams, that's going to matter. You can get away with that with Utah, who just doesn't have the personnel to stay with you from top to bottom, even though they made it a game. You can get away with that with some other teams who may not be as adept offensively. But when you're going up against these teams that can put the ball in the basket, like a Ohio State, like a UCLA, you're going to have to, LSU, you're going to have to bring it offensively. So that's something to keep an eye on. The number 2 team here is UCLA, which I'll be honest with you. Really, it's just you can't do anything with Lauren Betts unless you have the size down low to make it formidable for her. I mean, it's really nothing you can do, and they do a tremendous job of feeding her from all angles of the floor. Everybody on that team who's on the floor, all those other 4 players at all times are looking for Lauren Betts. And honestly, when you have a weapon like Lauren, that's how you should be. Use your advantage until it's not an advantage anymore. And they do that tremendously well. And then they got some nice pieces around them. Obviously have the 5th-year senior coming back with Charisma Osborne, who I don't think will be a very good WNBA player, but she's a very nice college player, provides spacing and leadership for them. Kiki Rice, who I actually think will be a tremendous pro player, but the college game is not really suited to her strengths. But she, however, gives you another gear, excellent out in transition, and can get downhill against man-to-man defense. She really it's obsolete against zones because she's not the greatest shooter. However, I'll say the last 3 games she shot the ball really well from the perimeter. And then defensively, she can guard 1 through 3. And then they have some other pieces as well to throw in there. London Jones, to me, has been very, very impressive. She's been probably their most consistent perimeter shooter, and she gives them another look to keep defenses honest when you have Betts in the game. So I like UCLA. Don't know if they're the number 2 team in the country. I still like LSU more than I like UCLA, but it's not a runaway situation. I think LSU is a little bit more vulnerable now with Samaya Smith out because they don't really have anybody other than Reese and Del Rosario to bang with Lauren Betts. And I don't think, Reese couldn't handle Arinette Vonleh from Colorado, right? And she's taller than Arinette. Betts is bigger and taller than Reese. So that's going to be an interesting matchup if they get a chance to see each other later in the season, probably in the NCAA tournament, late in the tournament. The next team is NC State. NC State, to me, is kind of a wild card because they've got a lot of really good pieces on the perimeter. There's no real focal point, but River Baldwin in the post has really, really stepped up this year. She was always a solid player, but she's really anchored them from the standpoint of you can't key in on their perimeter players because you have to play her straight up. And so, I think the emergence of River Baldwin has allowed their guard play to really take that team to another level that people weren't expecting. We all knew Sanaya Rivers was very good, but she's been playing even better than anticipated this year, really handling that point guard role masterfully, even when she's not shooting the ball. I mean, she's just really, really been a difference maker for that team. And I thought with them losing Diamond Johnson to Norfolk State that they would really, really have some difficulties with the point guard position, or maybe they would play point guard by committee. But Sanaya Rivers has shown me that I was completely wrong on that, and they made the right decision. Next is Iowa at number 4, who Iowa's going to be all over the top 10, top 15 all season long. Fortunately for them, outside of Ohio State and Indiana, they don't have much competition in the Big Ten. So they shouldn't face too many challenges as we head into conference play that's going to really challenge their ranking or get them too far. They probably won't drop below 12 or 15. They might lose to both Ohio State and Indiana. More likely that they lose to Ohio State than Indiana, but they both could lose to possibly both. Caitlin Clark, it's the Caitlin Clark show this year, and I think what we're seeing more than anything is not how spectacular Caitlin Clark is, or if you want to say how inconsistent she's been this year, you could say that. But I think what we see more than anything is how special Monica Sanano was and how much they miss her presence. And a lot of people thought that Hannah Stokey was going to come in this year and really provide that punch on the inside that they needed, but she's just not the same player. Hannah Stokey is a really nice energy player, someone that I would love as my other post player, but not my primary post player, or someone coming off the bench to give my primary post player minutes. She's not someone that you really can, at this point of her development, build anchor your interior offense around. So it really is just Caitlin Clark. Is she hot or not? And to be honest, when you're shooting that much, I guess you're never really cold when you shoot as much as Caitlin does. But we'll see. Like I said, I expect them to be up and down. It's really going to be about how hot Caitlin Clark is. Texas is a team that I really like because I like Vic Schaefer teams anyway. Defensively, when you defend and you rebound, is one of the reasons why South Carolina is always good. One of the reasons why UConn for a long time was always good. When you defend and rebound, that's more than half the battle right there. So when teams can't get good shots, it's not just that you keep them from getting good shots. When you're a good defensive team, the number one thing you do is you keep offenses off balance and you make them play left-handed. They're never in a rhythm and they're never getting the shots that are designed for them to get. They're always third and fourth options that they're shooting as first and second options, because you're taking away their first and second options and forcing them to get deeper into their shot selection bag, so to speak. So where my initial offense may be for my point guard, or maybe my big and some high screen and roll action, or just going directly into the post, we're not allowing you to just post it wherever you want. So even if your big catches it, they're 4 or 5 feet off the block. So now the ball has to go back out, or we're just denying it altogether. So now inherently you're going right into your second option, which at the college level, after that first option, it gets questionable as far as who you can run offense through. So the really good teams have maybe 2 or 3 players. Most teams have 1 player and then a bunch of really good players around them. So once you start getting into that second and that third offensive option, your offense is going to sputter. You're asking people who aren't designed to carry your offensive load to do that, just by the nature of how you're forcing the team to take shots. So, and then when you rebound, you get out in transition, so you can push pace. So now you're forcing bad shots and you're pushing pace, and you're forcing bad shots and you're pushing pace. That has a deleterious effect on the opposing team, and that's why you see teams who are coaches who really emphasize defenses and rebounding, their programs are always pretty good. And so Texas is no different. Defensively in the backcourt, Rory Harmon is one of the best defensive guards. She's one of the quickest offensive off the dribble. I really like Rory Harmon. Madison Booker has been special already this season. We have a lot of freshmen who've been really good this year. Madison Booker is one of those freshmen. She really has a game that, it's funny, she wears 35, because even though her game doesn't really resemble Kevin Durant, she plays a similar role that he played at Texas. If you remember when KD was at Texas, he played the 4 there, and I think he averaged 25 and 11 or 26 and 12 or something like that. So Madison Booker plays a similar role, and I like her game. She has a good jump shot. Big body, finishes well around the rim. I think she could operate in the low mid post a little bit more than she does. She kind of falls in love with that jumper sometimes, but I don't hate it. Amina Muhammad is a great role player for them. So I like Texas a lot. and we'll see how they progress as the season goes on. But they're 10-0, so I don't see any signs of them slowing down. Even as they head into conference play, they may have some battles ahead of them. USC, I don't anticipate as they get into Pac-12 play, and this is the final season, unfortunately, of the Pac-12 conference, which is a conference that really provides a balance and a balance for college basketball as a whole, men's and women's. Like, we have so much bias on the East Coast here, and then you have the Midwest, but that West Coast was really anchored by the Pac-12, and you needed that. I think for competitive balance, I think the Pac-12 is vitally important, and we're losing that with a lot of the Pac-12 teams going to the ACC next year. So that's unfortunate, but this year will be one for the ages. I can tell you that with UCLA, with USC, Arizona, like you're gonna have some Utah. You're going to have some teams coming out of that Pac-12, man, and Colorado. I mean, it's going to be a dogfight in the Pac-12. So I don't expect USC to continue winning at the pace that they're winning. I think they caught Ohio State sleeping early in the year. If you watch the game, Ohio State they really got back into the game, especially when Juju wasn't on the floor. They just couldn't finish it. You can't get down by 20 and expect to come back in many games. It's just, you're spending too much energy, especially the way Ohio State comes back or the way that they put the press, like their full court press. And they're playing hard every possession. So that takes a toll on you at the end of games, especially when you've had to chop off so much of the lead. So I think that in 7 out of 10 games, Ohio State beats USC. I don't think it's a 9 out of 10 or that was a fluke. I think they're capable. Obviously, they beat them. But I think 7 out of 10 times Ohio State beats USC. I think they're really Juju Watkins and a bunch of role players. And there's no knock to them other than Rainier Marshall, who I think is one of the best frontline players in the country. It's really those two. And so what I anticipate is that, as the season goes on, teams they're getting film on Juju. They're not going to keep letting her go right. They're not going to keep letting her get downhill. And they're going to make her probably do some things that she's not comfortable with. And we'll see how she adjusts and adapts. LSU, obviously, we talked about LSU opening the show. I think LSU is going to be a Final Four team and going to contend for a championship again this year for all the reasons that I stated. So no need to kind of go back through that. Colorado is who they are. This is what they were last year. Aaronette Vonleh with Collins at the point guard position. They have all the pieces just to be they're a good college basketball team. It's what they are. They're just good. They got solid down low play. They got good perimeter shooting. They got good guard play. So any night they can beat anybody. And obviously they showed it the first game of the season. And they have not done anything to make me think any less of them. So Colorado will be in the mix as well this year for a Final Four spot. Stanford is a very interesting team because as much as I love their frontline play, not only with Cameron Brink, but who I think is going to be the most improved player this year, and Kiki Ariafen. People, let me just take a moment and give this young lady her flowers. Kiki Ariafen, I think, averaged about 6 points a game last year, 3 rebounds. This year, she's around 20 and 11, 20 and 10. When I say she's been their most dynamic and their most dominant offensive player this year, that includes Cameron Brink. She is not virtually unguardable. She has been unguardable in every game they've had this year. Unguardable. And granted, Cameron Brink's been really good. But Kiki Ariafen has been their most dominant player. And when she's not on the floor, their offense doesn't go as smoothly. So the thing I don't like about Stanford is their point guard play. Lapolo is really... She doesn't look in basketball shape, and she gets beat a lot, which, kind of you would think, she looks a little pudgy. I hate to say that, but she looks a little pudgy and slow. She doesn't give you much offensively. She's not dynamic. She can knock down shots, but I never got the hype around her. She's another one. Her, Raven, she's another one I never got the hype around. It's on the Team USA. She's a nice college player, but they need... if Stanford does not make the Final Four this year, their point guard play will be to blame because they have everything else, but they just don't have the point guard play. So we'll see how that goes. But that's my take on Stanford. Baylor, haven't had a chance to watch them against any heavy competition this year. I think I saw them against Southern earlier in the year. They look pretty solid, so we'll see as the year goes along. Uh, and then you have the rest of the top 25 kind of rounds out after that. But keep an eye out for that top 25. Um, let's see if there are some teams that may be sleepers further down the list. Ohio State, I like. I just think that they had that one game against USC and kind of got quiet, and people kind of forgot that this team did beat UConn to make it to the Elite Eight last year or the Final Four, whatever it was. So that's a team that I'm not going to sleep on. Ohio State, UConn is still UConn, and Page is healthy. I like UConn to make it a Final Four run. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship. I don't think they have the firepower to beat a South Carolina or to beat a LSU, but everybody else pretty much I think they can beat, and they know how to turn it on. It's not that they don't have it turned on. It's just they're just dealing with a lot, man. The last 3 or 4 years, it's just been injuries, and so they never have really gotten their footing up until close to March, conference time into March. That's when you see UConn really start to roll. So I would not count them out. I anticipate, like I said, as long as Page is healthy, and they've got 3 freshmen that I really like, and KK Arnold, Ashlyn Shade, and Caden Samuels, who's actually out of this area, coincidentally. I like them. So I think that as the season progresses, they get more comfortable. They're going to have more depth than people realize. Like the AZ injury really, really is devastating to them. I think if they had AZ, they're a Final Four team for me. Even though they lost to NC State, that didn't really sway my opinion. But AZ is such a dynamic shooter, ball handler, and she gets looked at as a shooter. But if you look at her high school career, AZ was a point guard in high school. She was a primary ball handler. Now she played with 2 other point guards who ended up going Division I as well. I think one went to Wagner and another one went to another mid-major Division I school. But she was their primary ball handler. AAU, she was the primary ball handler, and she was very adept at it. It's not like she played the point guard because she was the best player. She played it because she knows how to play it. She's very good off the dribble, very smart, very crafty. So it's not just the shooting that she gives them. Like, she gives them playmaking, and she gives them tough shot making. She's a very good off the dribble shooter. And late in the clock situations, you need players that can hit off the dribble shots. UConn has one of those players right now currently with Paige Beckers. So she really takes that load off of Paige, and not having her is going to be big. But I think Ashlyn Shade can really step into that role a little bit. I think she's going to be what they hoped they were getting from Ducharme, which another player that I didn't see, when she played with Exodus in high school, I didn't see UConn. I didn't understand that, but whatever, that's where they went. But I think Ashlyn Shade is going to give them what they were hoping they were going to get from Ducharme. And I think Caden Samuels as well. They're gonna kind of be a blend together of what they thought they were getting from Ducharme. But then KK Arnold, I really, really like. I think she should be starting alongside Paige, and just bring Nika off the bench, man. Nika is not hurting them, but she's not really giving them anything right now, and they need more dynamism on their offensive attack. That's really what they need, because defensively, they're just small. So when you're small defensively, you got to be dynamic offensively to offset that. And Nika doesn't make them dynamic. She doesn't hurt them, but I think similar to the Raymond Johnson and Malaysia Fulwale situation, I think KK Arnold gives them another gear that would really help them to compensate for their lack of size. So that's the top 25 in a nutshell. Next, we're going to kind of talk about the WNBA lottery. And before we get into that, let me pull that up. So, if you guys saw the lottery last night, the draft lottery, Indiana Fever won, which, I wouldn't say they won. It was gifted, the number one pick. They're kind of doing the same thing they did with Seattle and the same thing they did with Vegas, where they pretty much gave them all these picks concurrently to set up their team. And I'll be honest with you, people might complain about it. I love it. As a league, you're trying to promote competitive play. You want dominant teams. Why wouldn't you orchestrate where teams go? I think the NBA should do that. And I think the WNBA should just be transparent about it. But I think that the NBA should absolutely do that, because at the end of the day, if you're leaving it up to the luck of the draw, so to speak, I mean, these teams you're always going to have teams wallowing in pity or wallowing in mediocrity. What you want is stack these teams. So for the next two drafts, the San Antonio Spurs should get the number one pick. And in San Antonio, if you can't make it go with that, then that's on you. Because next in line is going to be the next up-and-coming star that we're going to give draft picks to that team. And so on and so forth. And teams that are able to get these transformative talents or look like they're going in the right direction, those should be the teams that should be given top priority in the draft. And everybody else, you kind of filter out however you want to do it. But yes, I think you should orchestrate where your talent comes into your league, because that guarantees formidability at the top. So I don't have a problem with it at all. I think it's obvious that Caitlin Clark is going to Indiana, and they are going to be loaded. You got Caitlin Clark, you got Kelsey Mitchell, who's the number two. People don't talk a lot about, but she's one of my favorite players in the league. One of my favorite women's basketball players ever. She's the number two all-time leading scorer in NCAA women's basketball history. Okay, Caitlin Clark has a chance to surpass her and Kelsey Plum. But essentially, that's going to be your backcourt. Two of the greatest scorers in college basketball history are going to be your starting backcourt. And then you throw in Alyssa Smith and Aaliyah Boston in the front court. It really doesn't matter who you put at the three. I know they drafted Grace Berger last year. They drafted the forward out of Louisville the year before, who I don't know if she's still injured or what, but I like her. I hope she's able to come back to form, because I think she's a nice piece for them. They got Victoria Vivians at the three out of Mississippi State. So Indiana, man, they're I won't say they're ready to contend right now, but they're a year away from contending with the pieces they have now. And if they were to add another piece in the offseason, a significant piece in the offseason, they could contend right now. So I love this for the league. It keeps it interesting, keeps us guessing, gives us another team to talk about other than just New York and Vegas. So I love it. I think number two, Los Angeles, is probably going to go with Cameron Brink. Makes the most sense. She's from out that way. And Nneka is kind of getting long in the tooth. She's not falling off a cliff by any stretch, but she's not the same player that she was. So I think going that route, I don't really have an issue with that. Phoenix will probably go Paige at three, because at this point they just need any good news that they can get. Sorry about the sirens. I live pretty close to a fire station, so yeah, that's a pretty regular thing. But I think Phoenix can just use anybody that can help kind of get them out of the shadow. The whole Brittany Griner situation, the whole Skylar Diggers situation. I think it's just been a lot of dark cloudiness over that organization for the last 2 years, and I don't think they've done anything to help themselves. I was appalled with the way they treated Skylar Diggins. And I have my opinions on that, but I won't get too deep into that unless you guys ask me to. But I just didn't like the way they treated her. I hope she does not come back there. And quite honestly, I don't want Paige to go there. But she is a UConn great, going to pair with another UConn great, kind of a full circle moment for Diana Taurasi. As on her way out, she gets to mentor and bring into the fold another one of the greatest guards in UConn history. So that will be a good story to watch. We don't know what we're going to get from Brittany. To be honest with you, she just seemed checked out last year. I don't know if She needed a year. I'm hoping that's the case because she's still a really good player, and Phoenix will be starting from scratch if they don't do something. If she's not able to do something this year and return to some semblance of what she's been, Phoenix is going to be a bottom feeder for quite a while. So hopefully she can come back, and then we'll see what happens from there. And then I think the rest we'll just have to see who's going to actually enter the draft, who's going to be available. You got Seattle, you got Dallas, Washington, Minnesota, Atlanta, Dallas again at 9, Connecticut, New York, and then Vegas round out the other 12 teams. So it should be exciting. Next season, I'm looking forward to it. This was an exciting season for the WNBA, and really the last 3 years, man. The playoffs have been pretty damn good. So I'm excited. I think the future of women's basketball has a potential to be very bright. Very bright. And if they play their cards right, they've got a chance to really do some things. And I'm going to bring up something that I saw in another podcast. Shout out to Keita Loves Sports. That's Keita Loves Sports, Quita Loves Sports. She's got a show on YouTube that I really enjoy. It's very, very informative, where she talks about a league that was supposed to start back in 1991, and they had one exhibition game. Now, get this. In 1991, a startup professional women's basketball league for an exhibition game had 10,000 fans. 10,000 fans. It's WNBA teams today that cannot get 10,000 fans in the seats. Now, what the idea behind this league was, and the guy who started the league, he said he was not building a league for women's basketball. He was building a women's basketball league for entertainment. And his goal was to entertain people. So one of the things with this league is the women wore unitards. And you can go look this stuff up, man. And I'm going to be honest with you. They look good. They look really good. Like, I love women's basketball anyway. So I just love basketball. I'm a junkie. I watch it all the time. I watch middle school, high school. I don't care who's playing. At right time of year, I might watch an elementary school game if there's no basketball on. I mean, I just got to have it. I need my fix. With that said, I'd be watching a lot more if they were wearing that stuff. I'm just being honest. As the men who are watching tennis and beach volleyball, they ain't necessarily tuning in for the athletic competition. Okay? So they had these unitard uniforms, man, that were very sexy. And it really brought out the sexiness in the women, these finely tuned athletes. If you know, these women, the baggy shorts and jerseys don't do justice to how good these women's bodies really look. And I hate to sound misogynistic, whatever. I'm just being realistic, man. These women's bodies are very finely tuned. They look very good in a bathing suit. So when you throw them in a unitard, a onesie, essentially, a tight onesie, kind of what they wear in like Olympic sports, the track athletes, something very similar to that, they look very good, okay? I think the Australian Basketball League used to play in those, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why they went away from that. But they lowered the rim so that it was dunking. I think it was 9.5 feet and 9 feet that was dunking. And one of the players who played in the game, she said, who was supposed to be a part of the league, said that going into it, she was highly, highly skeptical, that she felt like it was a mockery of the game and that they were trying to just turn it into a minstrel show, essentially. But she said when she played in it and she went into the arena and had the experience, she said it was the most fun she ever had playing a basketball game. This is a woman that played 4 years at the University of Texas. She was one of the highly touted high school players coming out of her class. She said that this was the most fun she ever had playing a basketball game. And that was very telling for me. So when I think about the future of women's basketball, I look at the marketing partnership they now have with Skims and Kim Kardashian. I'm seeing some things. And if they can capture this momentum that's really been generated by the women's college game, if you want to be honest, with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers have done for women's college basketball in the last 3 years, they really set the WNBA up nicely that if they play their cards right, they can really knock this out the park. So I can see a future of the league, whether it be the WNBA or another league, where sex is selling. You got the sexy women playing a sexy game, and it's a paradigm shift. Now, instead of it being them competing against the NBA, they're competing against the Kardashians or Desperate Housewives or shows like that. That's their competition. And people watch the games as a byproduct of their interest in what women's basketball is as a whole. So that's what I can see coming down the pipe. Being here in the DMV area, I see how, man, girls grassroots basketball is just booming right now. Business is booming, okay? When you walk into these gyms, man, it's amazing to see. So the future is bright if done right. So with that being said, thank you guys for hanging out with me. Leave your comments, your critiques. If you want to see a live show or hear a live show, I'm still working out the kinks. Like, this is my first video, so I'm still working on how to do X, Y, and Z. But we're gonna, do this journey together, and hopefully you'll see us grow over time together. But I love the game. I love talking about the game, and just stay tuned. And this season for women's basketball, this college basketball season, may be one for the ages, with the talent at the top of the overall teams, with the freshmen coming in. It's going to be exciting. It's been exciting from the beginning, and there's been no drop off. Every week it's been fireworks. So I expect it to continue. All right, folks, have a good one, and we will see you soon.